What month are we in? You should know this. You've had me before. Government likes to designate months and days as holidays or for remembrance. What month are, excuse me, what are we remembering this month? I know, so easy to do that. The people that make up our country. You want to take a guess? 11 C. Huh? 9/11 is the whole month dedicated to September 11? Suicide. No, okay, that's good. No, that's. Is it Suicide Prevention Month? Oh, it is as well. Oh, I didn't know that. Preventing suicide. We're diligent. We're driving my family to want to kill themselves. Go back. Their lives. What month is it? And other than suicide, which group of people are we honoring this month? I know you're not supposed to use them, but all right. We can cut you a little slack, Mr. Jastrzemski. Yeah. I'm looking it up. Good. Thank you, sir. I think you're being Miss Harrison. Okay, American Workers got Labor Day. True. Like the American Workers Month as well.
Wait, remember, it's Hispanic and Latin.
Oh, yes. Hispanic Heritage Month. Hispanic Heritage Month. Yeah. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not against workers or anything, but yeah, that's, I want to try. Up to you, sir. Hispanic Heritage Month. So, to honor that, I will talk about American Hispanics. I'm going to limit myself. I won't talk about every Hispanic, but it's those who have a connection to our country of the United States of America. And because this is a Catholic school, those who are they were Catholics and they're on their way to sainthood. They were very holy, righteous people, and they maybe one day will be officially declared saints, but they're in the process. They're on their way. And I'll start doing that on Thursday. Talk about one saint. Start with a saint, Juniper Serra, or Junipero Serra. Yes, talk about him on Thursday. So just so you know, be aware. Might show up on a quiz. But let's get back to writing. Where did I stop? The meaning of writing, I think. Taitung, yes. Talked about that. Artifact, technology. Yes. Art, produce. Oh, kinds of writing. Oh, okay, that's fine. Get to kinds of writing in a moment. I didn't add this to my PowerPoint, so I'll be using the board of that. The meaning of writing. Okay, what does it mean? We start with our thoughts. We have thoughts before we write anything. I think that's just, whatchamacallit, what's the word I'm looking for? The phrase I'm looking for. I think that's, it's almost there. Not de fide. It's a Latin phrase. I can't get it. It's like right there, but I can't get it to come out fully in my brain. I can see the writing. I can see the words, but I can't express them. It's still not coming. Anyways, but we have thoughts, presumably even as babies. I'm assuming babies are having thoughts. We assume that they do. But, I certainly know as a little kid, very little kid, I was having thoughts. And then we learn to speak. We're taught to speak. We imitate what we hear from our parents. It's really weird, though, because, it's like no one sits a little kid down with a grammar or anything like that. And somehow it just, boom, it clicks in the brain somehow, whatever culture it is, And all of a sudden the kid just starts speaking the language, learning, associating words with this, that, and the other, understanding what concepts mean, verbs like eat or love, something that like love, philosophers have been talking about for thousands of years, So the kid understands it, boom, and uses it correctly. And it's not like, oh, I'm going to love to the store. No, what do you mean? What do you mean? Well, I'm going to physically, No, walk. The word is walk, honey. No, that's it. No, it's love, mom. I'm gonna love to the store. No, the kid uses it correctly. How does he know? How does she know? How did the brain know? How does the brain know your parents are speaking English and not Klingon? So we have thoughts, then we speak. And eventually in human history, actually quite late in human history, we developed forms and symbols to express our speech into writing and creating texts. Not just, I guess you could say a text is a more formalized writing. Writing is just writing. Archaeologists can stumble upon a cave and find things, words and stuff etched into the side of the cave, and it's just a writing, but it's not a text. If in the cave with those etchings, they found a bunch of maybe jars with scrolls rolled up in them, and they unrolled the scrolls, and the writing continues on these scrolls. That's text. That's different. Similar, but it's different. Maybe more formalized, more advanced form of writing. When we start not just writing on a wall or something, or on a thing to say, this is Matthews to show ownership or something. But now, I want to write a story down that I heard. Now you're creating texts. Ooh, that's a development. So writing is different from other symbolic communication. From painting, I mentioned painting before, so I'm not going to beat that dead horse. But it's also different from, say, mathematics. Because mathematics is symbols, right? Math is not writing. Okay, you use stuff like this, this means greater than, right? Because you're going to the right, and this means something is less than. So 5 is less than 50. This is not writing, though. These are symbols. This is a symbol. This is not even a word. It's a symbol that represents the word for the number 5. And then this is another symbol conveying the idea that this number 5 is less than this other number. It's a combination of two symbols, another 5 and null. So that's not writing per se. So it's different from mathematics or writing like that, or physics equations. That's why we don't call it writing. They're equations. All right? Why? How is it different? Because writing requires knowledge of the associated language in order to read it and understand it. Knowledge of the language, the source. What are the thoughts being conceived as? Are they conceived in Armenian or Arabic or Nahuatl? What are they conceived? Then you can read the writing. But I can read this. They can read this in China. They can understand this in Swaziland. You can understand this in Germany, right? If I wrote this on the board in Germany, the math class, they'd all know what it meant. Russia, places with different alphabets, different writing systems, different languages, but they all understand this. But, if I write this is less than 50, I can even say it to them. I can say 5 is less than 50. And if they don't understand me, then I speak louder. 5! 5! Do you understand now? You see, that's how you do it, right? Well, that's how we did it before we had AI to translate languages for us. What's wrong with you French people? Ah! No, you have to understand the language. So that's a difference. The language associated with it in order to understand it. But symbols, no, no. Writing is both an action and it's a thing. Okay, I started out by telling you the different ways the word writing can be used. Did I start my thing? Whoops. Yeah, I did. Okay. I thought I did. Yeah, that's right. There are different ways that you can use the word writing, but essentially it's an action and it's a thing. That's a product. It's an activity. You can write something, but then you have a writing. It's also a product. And so it's recording language, which if we take Aristotle's idea, you're really recording mental concepts or mental thoughts, which is what language is used to express. Because even language is symbolic in a lot of ways. It's using, we might have the same concepts, like I mentioned, love before, but, we don't all say the same thing to express what appears to be the same concept, I would imagine, because you have people who speak different languages who still hook up, still find each other, get married, have kids. So obviously something's going on there. And they're calling, one person might be calling it love, another one calling it amour. No, honey, it's amour. It's not love. I don't know what love is. No, the concepts are the same. But the language is different, okay, and how languages function. And also, language or writing is, writing is a system of recorded language. Okay, so we're using letters or pictures. And we also use different kinds of letters, like some letters might be capitalized, so they're in a different form, in a different shape than other letters, which we call lowercase. Why? Well, it's convention usually, a capital usually tells you the beginning of a sentence, or that the word is important, like it's a name of someone or something. Where am I here? Well, we mentioned cursive before, but no one's teaching script or cursive in the schools anymore. I don't know why, because you're won't be able to read. Well, you can still read cursive, right? You just can't write it. Yeah, okay. Because you want to be able to read it, because a lot of people for a long, long time have been writing in cursive up until now. I don't know why they just decided not to teach it. They still teach time, how to read a clock in school. Why? Everything's digital. You'll have your phone. You don't need a clock. But, okay. Anyways. Should wear a do-rag or something. I'm sweating. It's not hot in here, but I'm sweating like a pig. Anyways. So these are different forms of the symbols, and yet we kind of know what they are. You know a capital A from a lowercase a, or you probably know a cursive A, even though they are actually very different if you think about them, A capital A versus a lowercase a, and then a cursive A. They're completely different. And yet you know what they are. They all symbolize the same thing, the same phoneme, sound. And writing is something, I already said that about an activity, right? So it is done, it's an activity, and it also becomes the thing, the text. It becomes my writing, not just my act of writing, but my writing itself. So it's creative, okay? You've made something with writing. It becomes something else. So hopefully your writing is clear, Mr. Barnett, yeah? Well, it might be unclear because your thoughts are unclear. If the writing, Ms. Quesada, is accurately demonstrating your thoughts, your thinking. But you might have a very clear idea in your head. Like some people are just like that. They're not good at writing. They think fine, but it's like I get in front of a typewriter or get in front of my computer, and it's like death. They call it writer's blocks. I just can't transfer it to words. I could tell you all about it. It'll all make sense. But if I try to write it, it'll be gibberish. It'll be just a bunch of words. Ah, okay. So the product It's something else. The writing might be unclear. So that's where interpretation has to come in. It's not enough that I have thoughts that I've transferred through the symbol system onto, say, paper or a file or something. Someone has to read it and interpret it. Reading is interpretation. That's why I'm sure you had your teacher say, when you write out your work for class or whatever, read it. Read it first before you submit it, right? Read it. No. Do you try to read your work, Ms. Tran, before you submit it? Yeah. Why? Why do you read it? You wrote it. Why are you reading it?
Like,
Huh?
like misspelling.
Okay, you may have misspelled a word or how would that happen if you're transcribing what's in your brain?
I think all first and then I read.
So it's not coming out of your head the way you want it? Well, that's interesting. So what's going on in our heads? I mean, aren't you thinking rationally, logically? Or are you able to accurately put down what's coming out of your thoughts? What you're thinking and you're typing, right? Ms. Taylor? So why should there be any difference between what you were just thinking in your head and what you just told your hand, your fingers to type on your computer? Why should there be? Why would you have to read it over? You just thought it, and then you just wrote it down. That's just bear with me. Lock it off. What do you think? This cop.
When you're writing on, I guess like what she said, it doesn't really come out how you think it is. So if you're typing really fast, you have to go over and make sure that the grammar also what you're trying to explain actually comes out.
Do you ever have to reorganize things? Why? Why would you have to reorganize? What's wrong up here then? Why? Was it okay up here when it was you were thinking it?
Sometimes, yeah. But then some of them have a thought that made more sense with the new thing.
So your brain like self-corrects. Well, that's interesting. That's weird, don't you think? It's almost like, when you're on Google and it tells you what you're searching for from what you did. Yeah, your brain like auto-suggests like, oh no, this is a better way to put that idea, right? That's, well, wait, what's going on there? If that's a better way to put the idea, what about the first idea? Where did that come from? Why didn't your brain just give you the better idea, phrase it in a better way to begin with? Yeah. Oh, you're on the griddle, sir.
Sometimes, worse ones would say, writing something down, helps it make sense physically on here, speaking. Feel some of the details with it.
Interesting. So by reading it over again and seeing it visually, kind of helps you organize your thoughts. And you do see if you made a mistake, like the finger, it with the wrong keys. Okay, interesting. Stay talking. All right, now I gotta go back to my thoughts. Who knows what's going on? Oh! Interpretation. Even you have to go back and interpret your own writings. Is that what you wanted to say, Mr. Seraphin? You might look at it and be like, no, I don't want to say that. Sometimes I write stuff out and I write stuff mean. I don't mean personality. and I think I'm being funny or something or whatever, blaming somebody on YouTube. I look at it again and I'm like, no, I'll edit this out or maybe this, change this. That's me. Why? Man, because I'm interpreting it. I'm thinking like, how would someone look at this other than me? Or maybe, is this really, if I look at it, do I want this to represent? But now you're interpreting what you just wrote, your own product. You're now kind of changing the meaning. It's not going to mean if you're rearranging paragraphs and not just correcting grammar, but changing a word here or there. It's now not what you meant, is it? It's not what you meant when you first put it out there, right? You've now reinterpreted it to another meaning, maybe. Hermeneutics is Christian. Hermeneutics. We'll have a class on it. So interpretation is part of it. And this applies to sacred writings as to any other writing. The Bible is perspicacious. Anyone ever hear a preacher talk about the perspicacity of Scripture? Any Baptists in the room want to self-identify? Evangelicals? No. Perspicacious. It's just a fancy word. It comes from Latin. It just means clear. That's all it means. The clarity of Scripture. The perspicacity. But it's meant to express a theological idea that because the Scriptures come from God and have been given to us by God, they should be absolutely clear to whoever reads them. They shouldn't need interpretation by a pope. Or a bishop. Or someone like that, priest. Every man, every woman with a copy of the Bible in his hand should be able to read the Bible and understand it perfectly, clearly, perspicacious. Of course, I've attended several Protestant churches in my day, many of them very conservative, born again, stuff like that. And I always kind of thought it was kind of funny because what's the dude doing up there for like 2 hours talking about the Bible? If it's so perspicacious that all we have to do sitting here, take out our Bibles and read the text and say, yep, makes perfect sense to me. What are you doing up there, parson? Telling me what it means. Well, he's not a pope, because we know the pope's the Antichrist. That's okay. He is a guy from a Bible college. Anyways, so it becomes something else. Even when we create the writing becomes something else. It develops. It even develops through our interpretation. Some people would say, like, if you're, I don't know, anyone doing literature, English, I don't think anyone's majoring in English or literature, but is anyone majoring in, like, no? All practical pursuits like sports management, and health stuff, and education. All right, I got you. The philosophers, the people who want to say, well, no, because you got to get a job. I mean, do it as a minor. That's the smart thing. That was not I majored in philosophy, Mr. McMaster. And, I guess I could hold a sign and stand on the street corner holding a sign saying, we'll philosophize for food. But not a lot of people are hiring people to philosophize. It's not like Greece 3,000 years ago, So yeah, minor in what you love, but maybe you should major in what's going to actually pay your bills. I get it. But nevertheless, if you do have to take some literature courses, right? Right. So English courses, maybe, or read some books or talk about books. Okay, fine. If you're exposed to that, you'll be probably exposed to postmodern theory, which is big in literature, where the text once the text leaves the control of the author, it can become whatever the reader wants it to be. It's kind of one of the principles of postmodernism, but we actually might be postmodernism now, so don't quote me, because postmoderns lost faith in any sort of truth, so why are we reading the text if I can, To Kill a Mockingbird can mean whatever I want it to say? Oh, well, did you read the book? Oh, yeah, I read the book. Yeah, but, the essay you gave me is nothing like the book. Well, I reinterpreted it. relecture. I reread To Kill a Mockingbird so that it fits to me. Postmodernism. Yeah. I'm still giving you an F. No. The text, I think I would argue the texts do mean something. They do have a mean, because that's why you want to, the text, you come back to the text. Okay? You come back to it. Like with scripture studies, especially with religious texts, or texts that you like to read. You know, there's some people who are really big into Lord of the Rings. And Stephen Colbert, that nighttime show. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a comedian. But people might be in like the Lord of the Rings, the trilogy written by this British author Tolkien, and they read parts of it all the time, and they keep coming back to it. Well, why do you keep rereading it? Well, why do you keep rewatching the same movies or something like that? Okay, because you pick up different nuances and you forget things, or you misremember them, and you go back and you're like, oh yeah, that's what happened. I kept thinking that's what happened, but it's not. So it helps to kind of purify your own interpretation of the text, which you might be wrong. So let's come back to Aristotle. Aristotle, remember, for Aristotle in his definition, okay, there's a phenomenal world, the world of phenomena, stuff that's going on, like this. Although I can't say really that very much is going on, Ms. Casada, can you? Which we have knowledge of. We experience the phenomenal world, the world of phenomena, of things that happen. And it comes into our knowledge. We think about it. We express it, our thoughts in language. Sometimes we write them down. And remember, for Aristotle, what's the meaning of writing? Well, it's just really a tool. Writing is not really, I guess it's not that important for Aristotle, except as a sign of a sign, really. It's a sign of speech, which is a sign of mental activity. Then again, you got to remember Aristotle's context, right? He's an egghead. He's a thinker. He's a philosopher, right? Not just a philosopher, though. He was also an empiricist. He wrote on all sorts of stuff. He was a biologist. He would go out and look at animals and bugs and stuff like that, write about them, and think about what they are and they're made of. So he's more than just a thinker. He did actually do a lot of investigations on his own stuff, nature. But, he is a philosopher. Okay? A man who is in search of wisdom, ultimate knowledge. Okay? So he sees, writing is, the mental process for him, we can assume or think, is more primary, okay, than the physical process of like carving or scratching or writing letters down. That's maybe a cruder process than thought. And it's not as direct. Your thoughts, for him, your thoughts are direct to you. They're there. It pops into your head. Writing just doesn't pop anywhere. You gotta, it's a process. You gotta take out your computer, turn it on, get your word processor software going. Okay, in the old days, you need paper and a quill and something like that, or a pencil, and pencil wasn't sharp, then you had to sharpen the quill or sharpen the pencil. Of course, you needed ink. If you're ink, then, there's no gasoline in the tank, so you needed ink from somewhere. You could have a quill and paper and all sorts of good thoughts that you want to express, but no ink, you're not going anywhere. So writing is subordinate to speech for Aristotle. It's a secondary, maybe you could even say a tertiary, a third sign system, which represents the primary. Plato, we had a reading from Plato. Yes. The Phaedrus, yes? The Phaedrus? Anyone look at it? Possibly read it? Anybody? They want to say? Maybe you did. Well, we're going to look at it now. The Phaedrus from Plato, who was also a philosopher and a teacher of Aristotle. hence he lived before Aristotle. Well, not before, they were contemporaries. Plato lived, maybe he was born sometime between 428 and 423 BC. What did I say? 423 and 428 BC, sometime, we're not sure. I wasn't there. Oh, I got to count down. Count down, right? You're counting down to the birth of Christ, right? You count down to the AD. So 428 to 423 BC. When did he die? What do my notes say here? 348, 347 BC. Excuse me, 348 / 47 BC or BCE, depending on how you like it. So what is this? 30 years, like 70 some years old. I mean, I'm not good. I stink at math, but just on the top of my head, around 70-ish when Plato died, I would say. So an old man. Greek, just like Aristotle, from Greece, what we would call modern day Greece. I think also he lived, taught, and died in Athens. So in the city of Athens, which is now the capital of Greece, he lived there and established a school there. Aristotle was one of his students. And Plato was taught by Socrates, the famous man's philosopher Socrates. And if you read the Phaedrus was written, oh, there it is in my notes. The Phaedrus was written, it's a dialogue. Plato wrote the teachings of his teacher Socrates down as dialogues. And, philosophers and historians of classical history still debate, I think, how much of the dialogues are really Plato's teaching and how much are authentic to Socrates. It's not necessarily clear, nevertheless. Supposedly dialogues of Socrates explaining his teachings by Plato. And this dialogue, the Phaedrus, where Socrates is talking to, he is only talking to this one guy, Phaedrus, throughout the whole dialogue. In other dialogues, there might be a whole bunch of other people, a whole crowd of people Socrates is talking to. But in this one, it's just Phaedrus, this man Phaedrus. And there usually are general topics that each dialogue is looking at. And then, they never come to an answer. That's not what Socrates is about. Socrates is a questioner. He raises questions and investigates people's definitions of what they think something is. So he might pose an idea like, what is justice? And then various people in the crowd or listening to him will say, well, I think justice is this. And then, okay, well, let's look at that, the Socratic method, as it's called. But the Phaedrus is just one dude. And most of the Phaedrus is a dialogue on love. What is love? But it also, as any kind of dialogue or conversation, it segues into other things. They talk about rhetoric, reading and writing and talking. They talk about a little bit about the soul, the nature of the soul and truth. But overall, I guess it's a dialogue on love. I'll stay. It's kind of funny, but. And the section, I didn't ask you to read, Mr. McKillop, the whole dialogue, because that would be crazy town. Because I don't want to read it. But I gave you a selection, okay, from lines 274, line 274 A and B, which is a selection that interests me because it deals with Plato or Socrates' view of writing and the distinction between writing and rhetoric, speaking and writing. Which is better? Stuff like that. So I thought that was interesting. So hopefully you read it or looked at it, but we're going to look at it now. There we go. The Gutenberg Project, which reproduces a lot of old public domain translations online. Classical stuff. Who would like to start reading this? I wish they had the numbers here, because it can just look like a bunch of text, right? Let me make it bigger. What is this? Who said? Was that you, Mr. Jastrzemski? Who said? What is this? Come on, be brave. I'm not going to yell at you. I just think it's fun. I've just spent like 10, 15 minutes talking to. Hold on a second. I got to find it again. There we are. Toot. All right, here. Oh, da, da, dee, 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 dee. There we go. Yeah, because this is the Jowett translation, and for some reason, usually in the dialogues, they'll tell you which portion is by Socrates, which portion is by another person. For some reason, Jowett, this guy Jowett, decided not to do that. I don't know why, but this is Socrates talking. Okay, enough of the art of speaking. This is Socrates talking. Okay, who would like to start reading that for us? Let's see. First person who yawns loses. Come on, you know you want to yawn. Come on, it's there. It's there. Come on, let's see. Who's going to break? Who's going to break? Miss Diaversa. Yeah, why? Do you want to just read the whole first paragraph? Hold on, let me, please. Enough of your.
Enough flowers speaking, but it's not. Whereas an older chick can tell
Toot or taught, but you got taught.
inventive showing. Scale of which young Adams is probably fun. Maybe gather the lesson that writing is inferior to speech, for it is like a picture which can give no answer to a question and the deceitful likeness of the creature. It is no power.
Calm down. Slow down. It's not a sprint. All right, go on. It has no power.
It has no power of application, but it's for all. It is not a legitimate son of knowledge, but a bastard. And when an attack is made upon this bastard, to their parent or anyone else that bears offended, the husbandman will not seriously incline to sow his seed in such a hotbed or garden of anonymous.
Yeah.
He will rather sow in the natural soil and soul, which has depth of earth, and he will anticipate the inner growth of the mind by writing only, if at all, as a remedy against old age. The natural process will be far nobler and will bring forth fruit in the minds of others as well as himself.
Okay, so we'll stop there for a little bit. All right. Last second. It's motion. Because she's done that on this too. Sorry, person. Anyways, all right. So, what do you think? What's your initial impression of Socrates' view of writing? Like it? Not like it? Indifferent? Raising your hand. It's Hitler. What do you think? No, it's Harrison. Your name's W. It's the first statement. I'm just saying. Yes, he's not. What do you think? You're not sure? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think he likes it because it says writing is inferior to speech, so I think he doesn't like it. Like he doesn't like writing.
Yeah, okay. Inferior means like less than, right? Lower than, not superior, like up here. Okay. So it's less than. He uses the word that it's, well, bastard, meaning a child that doesn't know his parentage or her parentage. Sorry for that. It's an old translation. I don't mean anything by it, but whatever. Yeah, you don't know its parentage. You don't know where it comes from. It's just there. It is like a picture. As Mackerlane, it's just like a picture. But, like a picture, it says nothing. It gives no answer to a question. What do you think he means by that? What do you think he means by that? Socrates says that writing is like a picture, it gives no answer to a question. You can think about writing, it's speaking. What do you think? What do you think? Not yet. What do you think? Attila? No, I got you. Mr. Jastrzębski, what do you think?
It's writing?
Yeah, what do you think Socrates means by that? It's like a picture that, you can't talk to it. There's no answer. Okay, how so? How so with the writing?
It's like that. And some of the details.
All right. But how do you not understand? I mean, if it's in English, right, you understand the words, right?
Now writing simple.
Okay. But if you read the syllabus, it's understandable, right? It's in English,
Yeah.
modern English. So you should understand it. But what if you have a question about it? What if something, you're reading it and it's like, oh, does he mean I have to do this or does he mean I have to do that? Well, it's right there in the syllabus, right? What's the problem? You have to write it. Trying to make time fly by. Can you ask me? Well, you're in class. I know you wouldn't, because everyone's a mute in this class. But would you ask? I shouldn't say you. Well, you did too. Then you too. But I think, you should have a doctorate in dentistry. So what, you can ask me questions, right? Isn't that better than a syllabus? I'm like a walking syllabus. I should know what I wrote down, what I expect of you. So you can ask me, right, Ms. Sada? Isn't that better than just having a piece of paper with words? Really? What if Ms. Casada, I'm not saying I would or that you would, but let's say there was a problem in the court, like the final grade or something. You thought that it should be this, and I thought I could be that, okay? So you want to appeal the grade. Your source would be the syllabus, right? The syllabus said this, and I did this. Therefore, I deserve this, right? Isn't that how the appeal process would work? They want to see hard copy. Okay, what did the syllabus say? Did you do it? They're going to want something, right? I mean, you can't just file an appeal, say, I should have gotten an A minus, he gave me a C. Okay, well, what's your evidence for that, right, Ms. Brawl? What's your evidence that you should have gotten? Well, the syllabus. But if it's better to have me rather than a writing, you can talk to me, you can ask me what I mean. Requirements are immediately before you. Whereas with the syllabus, you don't know. You can't ask it questions that's going to answer you back. I mean, you can, okay, but they'll, get out the butterfly net. It's in there with the syllabus saying, what do you mean? What do you mean? I think you're nuts. And that's kind of like what Socrates is getting at. You can't take a writing and ask it what the author means, but if you talk to the author who's speaking, You can always interrupt and say, excuse me, Socrates, what about this, that? Dialogue, it's more direct. See, we've got to kind of reverse in the modern age. We want the hard copy. Everyone's parents, lawyers, attorneys, in a courtroom. Everything's hard copy, baby. They want the papers. Everything's papers. You sign papers. But of course, if you're on trial for something, they want, well, other stuff as well, but they want evidence, physical evidence. They want he said, she said, as part of a process. But if you do, what makes you believe the witness is like, oh yeah, he told me he was going to kill her. Okay, well, whatever, the person can say that. The person hates the person on trial. I just wants to ruin you. Okay, there might be reasons someone might say that happens. But then, you find a letter or something, the person wrote to say, yeah, I'm going to kill her. That's hard copy. That's not something he said. It's something that's there. I got you. It's there. We have it, so that's reversed. For Socrates, just know this. For Socrates and the ancients, and a lot of cultures, not just the Greek culture, Socrates, it's exactly the reverse. The testimony is what matters. The speaking. You can question the speaker. And, so that's why we have an adversarial system. It's not just about documents and evidence, but that's why you do have also testimony. See, it's not stuff we made up. It's stuff somewhere, okay? In the ancient world, just added on other things. You have testimony. I heard him say that. Okay, so I get up and say, no, you did not. Or when he said, sir, that he was going to kill that woman, he meant someone else, not the person who was actually killed. But he did say that. Oh, crime. What? And the person on this witness stand is like, well, yeah, maybe, I didn't know it was necessarily her. The prosecution sees his case like, or her case. There's the bad witness. But that's the benefit of speech. Writing, you can't do that to. The letter where the guy wrote out how he's going to kill her, that he wanted to kill her, all this other stuff. The defense can't do nothing with that. Except maybe say, well, that's not his handwriting. That's a forgery. Okay, they can dispute the writing. They have to. So this is different for us, okay? Speech is more primary and more important than writing. Writing is something you have to do because you get old. If you're forgetful, then you need to write stuff down. If you're forgetful, Mr. Barnett, okay? You go to the store and you need a list. Do you need a list? Yeah, you're 20-something. But I'm 52. I need a list for the list. I need a list, Mr. Lebedinsky, that tells me to look at the list. And I still screw it up. I'll look at the list, and I'll still forget something. Why is that important too? Well, think about the Bible is an ancient writing, isn't it? From 2,000 years ago, even longer than that with the Hebrew script, with the Jewish scriptures. Even before Socrates in some cases. Some of the books were written before. So, and from the same area of the world, the Eastern Mediterranean world. We can't assume 100%. We always have to be careful about our assumptions and know when we're making them. But we can assume that there was some shared idea of the importance of speech over writing, just like Socrates expresses in the Phaedrus. So it was more the oral communication of the stories about Father Abraham or Moses or Jesus. That was what was important. And then writing, it's not surprising that writing comes later. It also is, interesting that, the Bible wasn't the go-to thing. That comes in modern times with the Protestant Reformation. Maybe if you've already listened, I was re-listening, I listened to it before, the talk by Karen Armstrong, because, papers on that eventually, about, and we'll watch one version of it. There are two versions of Karen Armstrong about sacred writings and why they're, oh, maybe we will. But anyways, you watch the video. She talks about, what is scripture and stuff like that. Yeah, it's only with the Protestant Reformation is the Bible, the book, the text becomes normative. Actually, I would disagree with that, maybe. I think it's probably with Islam that really becomes the thing. Islam, the text. Okay, because the prophet was so proud that, that they had a book of their own. And that was proof of his prophethood from God, that he was able to produce this writing. Okay, but really but even still the oral thing, the Quran, as Armstrong said, Quran means recitation. It doesn't mean writing. Qara in Arabic and also Hebrew means to recite something. And so the early Quran, even though the book element is there, very important, it was recited, oral. So that's what's important to the ancients. Because then you can ask, God bless you, if I'm in some church in Thessalonica, Ms. Prawl, and I'm talking about Jesus, and well, Jesus, there's one Jesus says, so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. Then Jesus knelt down and he healed this paralyzed guy. And the guy stood up and started dancing around and stuff. So okay, I'm telling you that story. And then you, Ms. Prawl, well, it's ancient Greece, so, yeah. But you interrupt and you're like, yeah, but what does that mean, Brother Matthew? You've told me the story. Jesus said this and he could forgive sins apparently, but is the Son of Man, does that mean him? Is he talking about himself? Was the miracle proof, the healing proof of what he was saying? Explain. But if you're just sitting in your room with the Gospel of Mark, for example, reading this story, who can you ask? Okay, the conclusion. Go on. Next paragraph. Who wants to read the next? Anybody? You stoke anybody's interest? Ms. Colamy? Ms. Colamy, have you checked out on me? Do I still got you? You want to read the next paragraph? Please? Huh? Yeah, just the paragraph. Yeah, beginning with the conclusion. Are you able to talk a little bit louder? Because I'm getting nothing up here. I can kind of hear you, but. Good.
Positions are listed. Only problems are all you have.
Fine, okay. Hold on a second. Hold on one second. Stop where you are, please. Again, I hear you laughing at me. I'll find you, sir. It sounds like a male voice. I shouldn't assume. It could be female. I will find you. What am I going to do? Nothing. Hold on a second here. Whoops. I don't want to do that. Let me get to the point. Here we go. Nope. Keep going. It's not what I want. There we go. All right. Oh, so, okay. So that's why. All right, good. He does give the name. It's Phaedrus. Keep going down here. Skip over that. Here we go. All right. Socrates. Start with that, Ms. Colony. Socrates. I cannot help but feeling Phaedrus. Again, painting.
Yeah, I've been once written down.
Humbled about, okay. Anywhere. Okay. Well, that's fine. He's talking about writings, yes? He's not talking about people when he says themselves, right, Ms. Colony? Huh? Is that a yes or? Oh, my eyeglasses on. Okay, yeah. All right. All right. So writings can't give an answer like a speaker can. When something's written down, you'd think that would be better, right? Because, once you've written something down, like if you all come in and, I'm going to be absent from the class or something. So I write on the board, Dr. Dunn will not be in class today, so you don't have to stay. Although if I'm writing it on the board, wasn't I here? But you never know, maybe I had to leave or Dr. Dunn had to leave. So no class today, he'll send you an email. Okay. And I write that down. So now everyone can read it and all gets the same knowledge, but that's not how Socrates sees it. When something's written down, it goes and gets into like the tumble cycle of the dryer, It can be interpreted anyway, Some people might understand it, some people might not understand it. You would think it would be better, clearer. But if I actually stayed back and told everyone who came, I'm not going to be here, so there's not going to be any class. Of course, again, Ms. Mackerley, I'm here, so what? Anyway. You might not understand what it said, what I wrote on the board. And the writing cannot protect or defend itself. So I can misinterpret it, do violence to the writing, completely misread it, possibly. Maybe it's not what I'm reading is not what the author meant or intended. Now did you hear about these lawsuits against ChatGPT and apparently aiding and abetting people to commit suicide or stuff like that? But the problem is, okay, it's going to go to court. We'll see what happens. But the problem is that it's just an algorithm, right? So there's no, if it's we're talking about something completely new here, actually, because it's not a writing. It writes out its answers to you, but there's no intention behind it because there's no human mind behind it. There's no will. So how can you even misinterpret it? Because misinterpretation means that you can talk to me and say, oh, when you say this, did you really mean I should do this? And I can say yes or no. But ChatGPT or generative AI, it's not doing that at all. It's just putting stuff together in a way that makes sense and you think. And, I don't know how it works, but I just know that it does work, putting stuff together. But there's no one behind it doing it. So where's the intentionality? So can you even misinterpret what you read from AI? Because you don't know what the AI means. Because it doesn't know what it means. This is following the algorithm that's been written for it by a human being. Or a bunch of human beings. So it kind of entered another level that, Socrates didn't have to deal with. Okay. Want to read the rest of that, or that pretty much make my point about Plato? Yeah, okay. Phaedrus. Yeah, that's pretty much it. He's gonna, he talks a little bit more about that. You can read the reading, maybe, for the rest of it. But that's basically, I've made my point and what Socrates' point is. Whoops, get back to this in a minute. Or Plato's point. But, Plato was not alone. This, we find this in a lot of ancient cultures across the world, that orality speaking is considered more reliable. See, we don't see it that way anymore. Speech we think it's less reliable. Witness testimony, it's always under attack. One of the arguments, you go on YouTube, you go on, you have these atheist apologists and stuff like that who go against the Bible or something. Why you shouldn't believe in the Bible? And people will argue, well, they passed on the stories and they told the stories. Some of the stories about Jesus, we think or seem to have been from eyewitnesses, people who followed him or knew him. Yeah, but even if they followed him, that doesn't mean anything. What they said, that doesn't mean anything. Even if they saw it and they're telling you what they saw, that doesn't mean anything. They could have misunderstood, misinterpreted what Jesus meant. They could have hallucinated. So the orality, in modern times, orality means nothing. But in the ancient world, it was everything. So you have to kind of shift your brain around here and how they looked at sacred writings. They didn't look at them in the same way that we might do, and in other cultures. So, for example, just to give you an example from, I'll skip over this. Not a big deal. Get to De Saussure. Kinds of writing. What kinds of writing do we have? Well, this gentleman, Ferdinand de Saussure, is a Swiss linguist from Switzerland, died in 1913. And if you study linguistics, you'll probably come across, certainly you'll come across his name, but you might come across this distinction between writing kinds and types of writing that he makes in his book, called, aptly enough, A Course in General Linguistics. Didn't I say he died in 1913? Well, the book was probably the English edition, published in 1916. Or my date could be wrong. But anyways, this is the version I used. That's what I found online. Public domain. There are two categories of writing that de Saussure identified: ideographic, and phonetic. So you might say ideas and sounds. Okay? Ideas or images and sounds. Images and noise. So they're ideographic writing systems from the Greek word ideia, which means a form, okay? But also it comes ultimately from the Greek word to see, eideo, to see. And yes, you need that line over the O because it's symbolizing that it's a different letter in the Greek alphabet. A long O, not a short O. So eideo, to see something. So writings, graphics, something written, grapho, written, that you can see, like a picture, okay? Grapho, again, just scratch, draw, paint, and write, okay? But then you have writing systems that are phonetic. They're based on the phoneme, you might say, sounds. They're not pictures of things, or that represent things. They're sound-based, phonemes. And so each is it phone or phoneme? I forget the word that the linguists use, but anyways, I'll say phone. Okay, if I'm missing a nuance of meaning here, I apologize, but the phoneme or the sound value, ideally in a language, is represented by a separate symbol, but not always. As we know with English, that's one of the things that makes English, grammatically, English is a pretty easy language to grasp and to learn. But pronunciation-wise and writing-wise, it's not. It's not so much. There are worse languages, by the way. People complain about English, but look at Irish or Gaelic. Try to read that, or Thai. Thai, one of the hardest writing systems on the planet. Japanese. Woo. Anyways, but yeah, like, you know, the TH sound of, or the, you know, we don't have a singular symbol to represent that phoneme of a th, okay, or phone maybe. We have two. We use two others. We use a T, which represents a t sound, and an H, which represents a h sound, which neither of which sounds like th, but we bring them together, these two symbols, phonetically to represent this one sound. So phoneo in Greek means to make a sound. Speak loudly. Phoneo. Phoneo. Not just to speak, Mr. Wojciechowski, but to speak loudly. Okay. So, sounds. Phonetic. So ideographic, drawing pictures, and phonetic, using symbols for different sounds. Okay. Yeah, I did that. Now, a writing system is not a language in and of itself, okay? A language can be written in many various ways. I mean, we write English with Roman letters, okay? But we could write English with Hebrew letters or Cyrillic letters, or the Greek alphabet, or in Arabic. We could. So the alphabet doesn't necessarily constitute the language in and of itself. The alphabet is a means of encoding language, rather, so that it can be read by others who understand it. Others of the time, but also others from other times, from the future, can now understand what people were at least writing, not saying obviously, but what they were writing from the past. So it's almost like a time capsule. And there are generally established by linguists three types of writing systems: logography, syllabaries, and then alphabets. Logography, syllabaries, and alphabets. Okay, logography would be ideographic, for one. This would be ideographic, and then syllabaries and alphabets will be under the phonetic typology that de Saussure came up with. Do I want to go into that? My alarm went off, so I'll stop here. And I'll come back to logography on Thursday. God bless you all. Please take a look at the Phaedrus if you haven't. I'd appreciate it. Make my heart happy. Of course, there will be questions about it on the quiz. Yes, Ms. Tran. Yes. Smile, Ms. Tran. It's a beautiful day. And you're getting out of class. Sure.